This is the real programming right here. This is the most fun I've had so far. People pay big money for this. I want to do some data shaping. I want to do a complex join where we're gonna have this great big join table that we're going to use to bring into all of our chart reporting, any potential reporting we could do, and then I'm going to do some further shaping to squeeze our data into a chart so that it makes sense when we're looking at it. And then I want to set up the charts so we can see the data. So we've got quite a bit to do here. I want to go ahead and do a review though of what we've got so far, because there's a lot going on here, right? I've got some data going on here right now. I've got some tests. I've got three. Let's do a review. I've got three testers, three students who are taking tests, and I have an itemized test history window here that shows all the tests for Darren, Kurt, and Steve. I've got them all in here. And down below here, I've got a statistical report, and I use this so that we can see one way of consuming a three-dimensional array. But before I go to there, I want to talk about this mode here. This mode section right here, I just want to bring your attention to that. What we've got going on here is, if you remember when we were talking about modes, medians, and averages, the mode is how many times a value occurs in the sequence of data points. So when we're taking these tests, how many times does Darren, Kurt, or Steve get a test score of a certain value? That's the mode. So, we might have an average of 83.7, and our median, which is the exact middle of a sorted list, might be 84.5, which is very close to that. The most oftentimes Darren gets is between 90 and 100. So when you're dealing with very few data points that can have a wide range of values, it's really important, I think, instead of just doing a mode value, to give it a mode range. So what I've done here is I say, well, Darren's mostly going to get, his tests are going to go between 90 and 100. He's going to fall between 90 and 100. And Kurt's are going to fall mostly between 80 and 89 based on all the data points. And Steve's will go between 70 and 79 with all his data points. So the mode is a value. And in this case, what I did, it's going to be a range. And it'll be a label. I created a label that gives me this range that allows me to report this. Let's look at that in the table. And what I did, remember, I created this report. I use this chart to kind of demonstrate a potential report that we have here of all of our student statistics based on the history of their tests. We have all the history listed right here. And this is another report, an itemized listing of all the tests that these students have got. It's sorted on the student and then the subject within student. And we use that here. So I wanted to show we did a three-dimensional, we kind of had a three-dimensional collection going, and I wanted to demonstrate how you consume that. How do you use that? And what we did was, I'm going to stop the program, come over here, I'm going to click on, let's see, I want to click on this list right here, bring down this, and what I've done in the items property of this is we created a complicated, we set up a bunch of add columns, and we took this call median list and we added a whole bunch of stuff to it. And what we did was we created a median, and we put the logic behind computing the median for every row or every record. And then what I did, I have the average, the median, and for the mode, we came over here and we went into that this collection of mode tables that we've had. And let's look at that real quick. And what it was is we started off as a blank, all set to zeros, but then we process it, and for each student we can see the high range and the low range, right? So we got from 50 to 59, we have one occurrence. And then it shows from 80 to 89, we got three occurrences. And so that's how for each student, that's the way it's going to look. So as you're looking at this list, this item, it's going to be for this student. You're going to go out there and get that label. And that label is right here. See there? Got it right there. So we do all of this sorting and filtering and everything just to get to that one label right there. And that gives us the label. But what I really want to collect is I want to collect a value so that I can plot it on my charts. That's what we're going to do next. So I want to show you another way, and I also want to take a joined list that we're going to carry over to another screen, and we're going to take it from that in that screen. We're going to use it for three different charts. So let's do that. So I'm hoping that I'm clear on this mode. Right now we're using a label, but I need to get a mode value out of that. And the rule I'm going to use on this is I'm going to take the high range and the low range and find the average of that. So I'll divide that by 2. I'll add those two together and divide it by 2. So I'll get it right in the middle. So it should be like a 95 or an 85 or a 75 in this case. Okay, it's probably a pretty fair statistical label to do it that way. Okay. In other words, we're going to say if Darren, most of his tests fall between 90 and 100, we're going to give him a mode value of 95. Sounds fair to me, doesn't it? Now, if you can do any kind of math games you want with that mode value, and you'll do that depending on the stakeholders of your program. The app that you're creating, these guys might want something different. Okay, so that's what I'm using for this demonstration here. I hope that makes some sense. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a test here. Let's go into the test and let's take a look at what we've got going on for that. So up to this point then, what we've done, just in review, is we've got the collection of history, which you saw in action over there was the itemized list. We actually created a bunch of tests. From those tests, we create this mode table. This mode table is going to be for each student, for all the students. We're going to collect this. We're going to go down and collect this mode table. So you're going to have a collection like this for each one. See, these are records. These are all tables inside of a collection. And then we're going to take this collection called median list. This is a pretty important list right here. This is what we're going to be using for a lot of things. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this simple list that we started off here, which is nothing but we're going to go in and we're going to collect. We're doing this in this same loop here, the same ForAll loop of all the students for each student. In this case, we have 3 students. So for these 3 students, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a collection. And we're going to use the me.studentID, which is the student table, and the me.studentName from the student table. And then we're going to take that entire test list. We're going to take this entire collection history that applies to the student. So all the tests are going to go into this test list field right here. They're all going to go right into that. That's pretty cool, isn't it? When I filter this, so if I got collection history, I've got all of it, and the specific test list goes into that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the mode. I'm going to look at that mode. Let's get that indented a little bit here, so it makes some kind of sense. It looks sloppy like that. So now I'm going to say for all the collection of median list, I'm going to do another ForAll underneath that, and I'm going to say now we're going to look at all the test lists. So remember, the test list it's another table. So for each item in that table of test lists, we're going to go down and we're going to use this collection call mode table. And what we're doing is we're looking to see each student. We're going to make sure that the student ID, we're going to get that collection, that collection of tables, and we're going to find the test score. And we're going to say, okay, is this test score is it greater? Is the test score greater than or equal to the range low, and less than or equal to the range high? We're going to test each one of those, and if it is, we're going to do a patch, and we're going to patch that specific record, the current record, which is this with statement right here, and we're going to add one to the occurrences. We're going to add one to the occurrences. And then at the end of this whole thing, we should find out the one that has the most occurrences. We should know that, because what we can do is we can sort it in descending order, the top one. You could do it in ascending if you wanted to, but we can do it in descending or ascending order. And in this case, we'll do it in descending order, sorry. And which means we're going to go from the highest to the lowest, and we're going to go to first and do the first one of that one, and that'll be the mode. So we've done that at this point. So let's take a look at this collection of mode table here. I want you guys to see that. That's what it's going to look like right there. We should have three items there, right? So then we take that mode table, and that's what we use at this point. That's what we use for our mode, right? We take this collection of mode table that gets that student ID, and it gives us that label. And that mode table label is this right here. This is the label. You see that? Where we've got 50 to 59, 60 to 69. That's the label that goes into that that gallery, so we can see it's our reporting tool. Okay, so now we go from there. We go below that, and we go and we've processed the mode. We found the mode. Now what I want to do is I want to take that entire thing. We're going to find another way to consume this thing. This is this is where the real programming goes. We're going to do a join, and it's going to be a complicated join, sorta. We're going to do a clear collect, and we're going to create a table, a collection called call join median list. So we're going to join this median list with the history. Right now, our median list looks like this. See this? We've got a student ID, a student name, and a test list. When we get done running this code, it's going to look like this. I wonder if I can bring that up just a little bit. Let's try something. Let's bring this up just a tad so I can see it a little better. Okay. I have the average, the median, the mode, and the mode value, but I'm also going to have some other stuff in here. Hopefully, by the time I get all done with this, we're gonna see something a little bit different. So we have the mode and the mode value, but that's what this. See how I've got this 90 to 100? It's gonna be 95. And you'll see how this is, I'm going through all the different test scores, and I'm collecting this information for each student. Actually, this is for this one student right here. So let's go ahead and take a look at this now. So we've got a collection call median list. It looks like this. It's going to go to this, where we're going to have both of them in here. And I believe if I do an ungroup right there, this is where we're going to start it, right through here. All right, so let's talk about this. So what we're going to do is we're going to start this off. We're going to go from the inside out. We're going to do a filter. And I'm going to do a filter on this collection, this mode table. I'm going to add that filter to this collection median list. So this is what goes on. We're going to start this thing off by ungrouping, and we're going to ungroup this field that we use to create the whole thing called test list. We're going to ungroup our test list. So now we're going to kind of denormalize this thing. And what we're going to do with that then is we're going to drop columns right after that. And we have to drop columns. We're going to drop columns the student ID. Because remember, you can only have the student ID one time. And student ID is in several of our different columns or tables that we're using, collections. So we're ungrouping the test list field. We're dropping columns of the student ID, and we're going to sort this thing. We're sorting this on student name. We're going to sort this on student name. And we're going to do an add columns here, because now we're going to, that's going to be our base table. And we're going to do an add columns from this collection median list. We're going to add to this. We're going to add the mode to this. And we're going to create the mode where we go to the mode table. And we filter, we find the first item. After we do a sort, we sort this on the filter on the student ID with the range high, and then the occurrences. Because the reason why you do that, or the reason why I'm doing that in this, is because remember we had a rule that says if it's tied, it's going to go to the highest number. So if you have two ranges that are tied with occurrences, it'll go to the highest range. And we want the first one of that, the top one. And we're going to bring that label in there. It's just that simple. So we're taking that student ID, finding that the column median list of that student ID, and we're going to filter it against that in that mode table collection. And then what I want to do is I'm going to do another add column, or the same add column, but another column I'm going to add called mode value. This mode value is going to be what I was talking about earlier, where you're going to find the middle point between that range. And all we're doing is basically the same thing, where we're finding the occurrences here, but instead of the label, I'm taking the range high plus the range low and dividing it by 2. And that's going to give me the mode value. Then I'm going to do a median. I'm doing another add column in that, where I'm adding, and I'm finding the exact middle position of the array. And we've got a video that talks about that, so I'm not going to walk through that whole thing. But that entire formula goes right in here. Right in here. And then I'm going to add another column. So we're adding all these columns. We're adding like 4 different columns to this thing, all with one function, just a list of columns. And after each name, we put the actual formula. And this is nothing but a big formula. Now I'm doing the average, and I'm just rounding an average. And I'm using the test list, the entire group of test lists, to find that test score. And the range, the average test score. So that's it. That's the entire joined median list right there. And when I get that done, I should have a pretty nice looking little thing there. So let's see what we got here. If I take this out, I'm going to bring this back down to 100 just to see if it gives me any more information in this median list. And it does. You see our join median list here? When I had it up to the 150, it was harder to read. Now we can actually see all the information that we put in it. Here are the 4 columns that we added right here. Average, median, mode value. Then the student ID, the student name, the subject ID, and the test score come from the original collection of median list. So join median list does nothing but add these 4 things to it. And what it's done is it's denormalized this thing. Let's denormalize this thing. You can see all the different tests that we've taken with this. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 records for each one. And what I've done is and you see how it's denormalized, because what I've got is this is all repeating data going across here. And that's typical of a joined table. And I guess I want to explain that, because that actually protects you from denormalizing your real data. So you realize that we haven't touched the original data, right? We've created another collection over here. That's the beauty of this collections and these add columns, is they're just virtual, they're memory. And we can bring them out there and we can play with them and change the data all we want. Okay, and we don't mess with the underlying data underneath that. And so we can denormalize this data in this instance, in this joined table, so that we can produce reports. And then but yet we can store everything in its normalized, where there's no repeating data or very little repeating data. And then that helps us, that actually helps us. So joins are really good. When you see a join, you're saying, well, that's just not normalized data. But really what this is it's a temporary table that's going to create a report, and it makes it easier for us to handle. And we can read across it nicely. So now let's take this information and let's go over and look at the charts. So I come here, I'm going to run the program, and I'm going to come here and I'm going to click charts. And charts, let's look at the code there of charts. It's really simple. I'm just navigating to the chart screen. That's it. That's all. And when we go to the chart screen, let's look at that. What are we doing in there? Are we making anything visible or anything like that in the visible property? Are we doing anything? We are. We're doing very little, but we're doing some. So we're taking this column, we're collecting from all the collection of students, and we're doing a lookup for each student of the student ID, the particular student ID, and we're putting that into the collection of bar chart table. Okay. So let's see what happens. I think we might not even use that bar chart table. I don't know. Let's look. We'll look at that for a minute. So when I run this now, I'm going to let's go back. Let's go back to our home screen. Run the program. Let's do it right. We go to charts. And I'm going to initialize this. I'm going to put this is Darren's activity right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and explain these 3 charts before we start looking at the code. So what we're tasked with here is let's pretend that we are doing this program for some school, and they want a history. They want to show a history of the tests. So it makes sense to me. This makes sense to put this in a line chart, because now we can compare each student. We're basically scattering all of their tests on this chart right here, and we're drawing a line for each subject. You see this? And so we can see trends. We can actually see the test history trend for each one. Green is going to be English, blue is going to be math, and red is going to be C# programming. And so we can see the student, how the student is doing for each subject at the same time. And if I want to go to a different student, say Kurt here, well, we'll take a look at his trend. So each person, we can actually see a historical trending thing. This kind of could resemble a stock market. If we had enough historical data across here going across, we could do that. Now this is kind of a nasty shaping of data, because it's expecting things to go top down. Remember in the chart presentation that I did, we were talking about all these charts. They have a similar characteristic in that they need the data to be going from top down, which means we're going to go across the fields. That's the top, and we're going to go down the fields. Like so, for instance, in this case, it would be test. We would want to see the test scores. We would want to see a field called test scores, and we would go from the top down listing that. But we don't want to do that here, because we want to see the test scores for each student. So what we really need to have here is we need to have the student's name to be on the fields or going across. So instead of going top down, we need to go sideways. So we're going to make this thing go sideways. And you have to do some interesting gymnastics to do that. But I wanted to use this. This was a perfect use case in demonstrating a very complicated data shaping maneuver. Because you see, guys, you're going to have to do some data shaping. It doesn't get any harder than this, so that if you can see this and understand this and consume this, you'll be able to do any of it. That's just the way I saw it. I wanted to present the hardest case that I could think of. Okay. Now these other charts are a lot easier. In fact, I think this comprehensive test statistics chart, you're just plugging it in. Plug it in. And there might be a little bit into the student median, but not much. So we're going to go take a look at that. But I wanted to explain this because this made sense. So our school that we're doing this for, we're writing this program for, they wanted the history, a comparison of subjects for the test history for each student. Then they wanted a comprehensive testing statistics, which would be your average, the red, the green is median, and the blue is mode. Now you'll notice I use this red, blue, and green color everywhere because it's just going to be the first three things in my series. And I just do it one time and it's done everywhere. We're gonna show you that. And then in this case, they wanted to see the median score. And I did a pie chart for a comparison. They wanted to see who's got the best median score. And if you look at the median score here, you've got green. In green, you got 84.5, 81.7, and a 70.9. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? So it looks like Steve is the smallest median score. And if you look at his pie, it's slightly smaller than the others. So we're all pretty close, within a few points, but you can see where one is opposed to the other. That's kind of cool, that explosive setting, isn't it? Kind of like it. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the code here. And let's go ahead and get to the nasty stuff first. Let's do that and get it out the way. So I've got a drop-down list box, and I used a modern control just because I wanted you to see how this. I just love the way this thing renders. You guys have heard me use that word render because I just can't think of a better way to describe the way this does. It looks nice, doesn't it? It's not choppy at all. Very smooth control. I love this drop-down list control. Very professionally done. Thank you guys in Microsoft. You did a good job there. I complain about them enough. I should give them an attaboy here now then, right? So let's go ahead and look at this code. In this change event here, obviously I've just got my collection of students, which is right here. And I got the student names being listed in here, and the student ID is mapped from it. Then I'm going to go ahead into the onChange event. Boy, there's some magic here. Let's talk about this. So what we want to do is I'm using this. Let's see. I've got this table. What am I using for the table? What table am I using here? In the items property of this table, I'm using collection called line chart. Call line chart. Now look at this data right here. There's no names or anything in here because what I'm doing is I'm doing it in the same order that it's coming across. This is one student right here. This is in this case this is Kurt's C# programming, English, and math. One of the things that I don't like about Power Apps yet, I'm hoping they can bring this in. So if you guys are listening, you wizards at Microsoft, if you guys could give me some dynamic creation of fields. So like I could say in this case, I could say, what subjects have we got? Maybe I want to report on these three things. Maybe I want to report on 3 different subjects. Maybe I want to report on a whole lot more subjects. I would like to be able to create the fields on the fly in my collections, or better yet even, in my collections or a table. Create the fields on the fly of what I want to put in there. But right now at this point, you have to give it static literal field names. And I wish they would give us an ability to go underneath there and put a variable in that. Wouldn't that be neat? I would love that. So what we've done now is you've got to know ahead of time what subjects you're dealing with, and you've got to hard code that. So I've done this. Now you can play games with that, and in this case I just put C programming, English, and math because that's the only 3 subjects that our school is dealing with right now. And so what I've got to do is, you got to remember we're going sideways because I'm looking at all the C programming, all the English, and all the math. This is expecting things to be top down. If I'm looking at this chart, it wants to see things top down. Go back up there. It wants to see things top down. So when I'm getting that listing, it's plotting it from top down. But I need this to go. So I need this call line chart to show my C programming, my English, and my math as 3 different series. So the series goes this when you're talking about chart series data, it needs that to go across. So if I want to see my subjects, I have to make them go across, and I have to see the test scores for each one of those subjects going down. That's what we're doing here. This is the hardest part of the whole thing. So let's go in here and look at this. First thing I'm doing is I'm doing a clear collect of my collection align chart because I just want to have some initialized data in there because I'm pulling up some math here. And then I'm going to remove that line because it keeps the underlying structure. So I put a blank in there, but I keep the structure. And that's what I'm doing. That's my little trick to do that. So I guess I'm going to highlight this once just so that you can see that. This is just what I do to ensure that I have initialized data in the structure. I want a structure that shows C programming, English, and math. Sometimes you can get away if you do a remove. You can see it. Sometimes if you don't do anything, it has a hard time understanding the structure. But I want zeros across that board to begin with. That's the important part. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have this thing here called max rows. Max rows right here. It's going to tell me what's the farthest I've got to go. Remember, I'm going sideways across here. Some subjects you might have more than others. Not everybody's going to do a test in English. Maybe one student has 4 tests in C#, but only 3 tests in English. So which one do I need the most of? Okay, that's what I'm caring about at this point right now. So how many rows am I going to need in my chart? And I'm going to do that. I'm going to show you that in a minute. Then I'm going to have just an iteration. This is nothing but a working variable because I'm going to be in the middle of these ForAlls. And remember I told you collections are really important because you can use them in ForAlls. You can't use update context. So what I do is I create a variable here. This is just being treated like a counter variable. And it just lets me know where I'm at within my ForAll loop. So let's go to the meat here. Now, this comment line here says, this ForAll goes through each subject and counts the number of tests per subject for the selected student. This tells us the maximum number of rows we need. That's all we're doing here. It's just one ForAll, and I'm doing a with the current number, and I'm doing a count rows from the student ID, and I'm testing this current number, and I'm saying, okay, if this current number is it greater than the max rows? Well, right now max rows is set to 0, isn't it? So if there's 1, it's going to go ahead and do a patch here, and it's going to take the current number, which might be 1, and put it in max rows. Then it's going to go to the next subject. It's going to go to the next subject, and it's going to say, okay, what's the maximum numbers I need there? And I'm going to do that for each student. I'm going to test to see what's my highest number. So then I'm going to go loop through all subjects. And for each new subject, I'm going to set this record counter to 0. See that? For every time I come up to this new subject, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of, I'm going to make this thing equal 0 because I want to count how many lines I've gone through to find out if I'm at my max or not yet. So then I'm going to loop through all the test history for this student, for this one student. And for each subject. So we're going to start at the top. It's going to be the subject. Let's say we're in C# programming. Now I'm going to go through here and I'm going to say, I'm going to do a filter on the student ID and the subject ID. That's my filter. So for each subject, now I'm going to find each student in this one. And I'm going to test to see if I need to add a record or just edit the current record. So if my collection iteration okay, so first thing I'm doing is I'm patching from the collection of iteration, and I'm doing the first collection of iteration, which is the only one I've got. It's my variable, and I'm going to set that to equal current row plus 1. And then I'm going to say if count rows is less than collection of numbers dot max rows, if the count rows of this line chart is less than that max rows, just do a collection. Just do a collection. Because I'm just going to go ahead, because I know I need to add it. I'm adding these records. But as soon as I hit max rows, I know that I'm done adding, and now I've just got to go in and find some stuff. So let's look at that. So I do a collection. If it's less than max rows, I collect. I just add a line to it. Otherwise, I'm going to update the field depending on which subject I'm on. So then I'm going to do, this is the else. I'm going to say if the current subject ID equals 1, well then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to update this item here. It's going to be my test score. This is the record. This record is going to equal the test score, and it'll be 0, zeros. So I set zeros on everything else. So I'm creating a record, and I'm going to add to this test score, and it's going to be 0, 0. This is what I'm adding inside of my collection right here. If the subject ID is 1, I'm doing this. If the subject ID is 2, I'm adding the math, and else I'm doing English, which is the last potential one, because we've only got 3 subjects at this point. If you were going to do more, you would have to probably do something different. Maybe put a switch in here or make this somehow more dynamic. So that's if I'm collecting. Else, I'm editing a current record and incrementing the row counter. So if I'm less than this max rows, I'm going to go ahead and collect. Otherwise, I'm doing a patch. And then what I'm going to do is I'm doing an index on the current row. Index on the current row that I'm at. And all I'm doing in this case is if it equals 1, then I'm going to be that's going to be my test score, C programming. If it's 2, I'm using that test score, the math, or else I'm going to the third one, which is the English. And that is the entire loop right there. And what that's going to produce is it's going to produce a sideways counting of all the different tests. It's going to label the tests. See where I've got the test scores here? Let's look at it. So if I take this collection of line chart, it's giving me a sideways look at this thing. So each time I go down this record, I'm going to say if it's 1, it's C programming. Put that test score there, and these would be zeros. Now, once I go through this thing with C programming, I got to go to the next subject, which would be English. Well, I've already added all my records here at this point. I've gone down. Now, maybe I've only got 3. Let's say I've got four English. English, I've got 4, but I've only got 3 of everything else. So in this case, I would have just 3, but then I might come down here and just be editing these 3, because now what I'm doing is I'm taking the same record where I have the C programming. I'm going to be editing that same record and adding, instead of, these were zeros, but I'm going to put the math or the English test scores in there. And then I might need to add another one. If English had more than anybody else and I was on the English subject, I would add a record to that. And C programming would be 0 and math would be 0. And the English would have 1 of them. So you would see 4 data points for English and only 3 for the math and the C programming. I hope that makes sense, because there's a lot going on there. So what I'm doing is I'm making this go sideways. So I'm taking that test list, and let's just run this one time. I'm going to go back home. I'm taking this test list for each student, and I'm placing it sideways. and listing all the items for each one. So I've got my C programming, my English, and my math going across instead of down. Do you see that? I hope that makes some sense. It's probably the hardest thing I've had to do to explain anything here with this. This has been my hardest one out of all of them, trying to explain this right here. So now we go to the charts, and we take a look at this. This is Kurt's stuff, and this will be Steve's. Okay, so you see how we've got that plotted. So let's go to the chart now and see how we plotted that. So this, remember, there's 3 parts to this thing. You have, each chart has a label. It has the actual chart control itself, and it has a legend. Now, in the app on start, actually in the formulas, I have all of my values that I care about here. Here's my series colors: red, green, blue, purple, and cyan. My stats: average, median, and mode. You'll see right here, average, median, mode. See that? That's going right there. Above that, you see my C# programming, math, and English. You see that's this right here. And then down here, it's just my names, the student names for these legends. But that's where I'm keeping that. And then my colors: red, green, blue. It's always going to be, the first series is red, the second is going to be blue, and the third is English. Well, in this case, it's blue and then English, because I've got English transposed in my table. So, but here it's going to be red, green, blue. You see how that's working right there? So it's actually mapping that English and math and switch that around a little bit. Okay, so when I run this now, okay, oh yeah, so I want to go into this line chart right now, the line chart control. Let's bring this back out so we can see and what I've done here is, you've got a grid style where I can have all. I could change that to none, no grid style. Or I could do X only, or Y only. But I kind of like both. I thought for a scatter plot, it kind of helps to have both. You can have your markers on, or you can turn them off. I like them on. The number of series is 3: C#, math, and English. And I don't need any kind of angles on these. I could put one. Let's put a 45-degree angle on this. See how I got how that angled there? It's kind of smooth. The Y, if I want to do a 45 on that, kind of changes the angle across there. So you can make this thing look kind of slick, right? And that's about it for that. Now, you got obviously the collection that you're in. And then for your advanced properties, here's my series: C#, English, and math. But that got twisted around a little bit because I've got, so I want to, let me do that. Let me go math and then English. How's that? There we go. That looks a little better. I had that transposed. Now what I've done here is we've got this item color set, and you see this is this big old line bunch of stuff, and I don't like it. So what I've done in this case is I used my own in the legend here. I've got my color red, color blue, color green, color aqua. And I do that right here. Well, I've done it here, but I also, so we go to item color set right there. You'll see how it's commented out, and then I put this. I could have actually used the other one too. In fact, let's switch that over. Let's see if we can use my FX, red, blue, green. I don't want to mess up here. Let's see. Red, green, blue. Red, blue, green. That's why it's doing that. So let's go ahead and change that to my FX. Oh boy. FX series color. And then make sure I've got that in my legend as well. I've got subject series right here. That's my subject series. I want series color, item color set. I'm going to do FX series color. There we go. Very nice. And that's pretty much it. That's how hard it is to set this thing up. So you see how I mapped it up with my FX. I did my series item color set and the series color, and I've done the subject. Now the subject was, let's go down here. It was something with the subject set. Get the right thing here. If I can get the right thing in my legend, need the items. It should be items. We go to items, and it's FX subject series. See that? So that's how you set this one up. Now the next one we're going to go to is over here to this comprehensive test statistics. And again, it's just got you have a label, a title, you have a your legend, and you have the actual chart. And in this case, we're dealing with collection of bar chart table. Now I could do this. In fact, let's just see what happens when I try it. Let's go to. Let's just use, because I've got this set up like this. This is really, you don't really need this to do it this way. Oh, this is not, I don't want that. Get rid of that. Okay. I've got how I put this in this collection of bar chart, but I could also use the same thing. I could say call, joined, median list. Woo, look at that. And I've got the same stuff. But that's how come what I did was I took this. This is actually showing all of the data, right? It's showing everything, all my test scores, because I needed those test scores so I could plot it. So what I did was I used the collection of the call bar chart table. And what it did is it just gave me one record of each one. So that way I've got this for nothing but the table. I could have actually plugged it into the call join median list because it's the same fields. I just wanted a reduced table from my data set. So that's the data shaping I did, is I had to get rid of all the repeat rows. Pretty simple data shaping there, right? And I did that in the onVisible property right here. I could have done a filter there, probably. I could have done a filter. But that's the nice thing about this. There's so many ways you can do this if you choose. And using collections, I consider it to be cheap. You can make as many collections as you want, and you can play with this any way you want. You can have a collection that's using a collection that's using another collection, and it's placing things together, and you can make this thing as simplistic or complex as you need. And it doesn't hurt anything underneath it. And it gives you a lot of room for creativity. And I'm sure that there's going to be some of you hotshots out there that are watching this video. You can say, well, Kurt, you could have done it this way, made it way slicker than that. And I love it. And I want to hear how you did it if you do that, because I think it'll be neat. And that's how I grow too. So that's the beauty of being a programmer, is it's art. In my world, it's creation. And so let's all be slick. Okay, so Darren's going to record that. Watch that. He's going to say, let's all be slick here today. Okay, so then we go to our last one, and that is our pie chart. And how did we do that? Again, you see that I've got a title, I've got a legend, and then I've got the chart. Well, how did we do that? Let's go take a look at there. I used the same call bar chart table, and all I did was I wanted to create a media. I wanted to pull one of those statistics out so that I could show how to do this. Now, wouldn't it be cool? You could actually change this up on the fly. You can make a button or a radio button across here that would show the median and the average and do the charts that way too. That would be smooth. You get extra points if you do that. You can try this and do some extra points on it. So give me a radio button that would let you change on the fly what that chart would do, which would mean you would probably have to add something in here, because the problem is some of this stuff you can't generate on the fly. For instance, you can't switch the series. So you're going to have a series in your table to hold one thing. Let's look at the series right now. If I go to the pie chart and I come down here to my labels, I've got my position, my items, and that's it for here. Now I go to advanced, and I'm going to say my labels and my series. You see that? I'll get one series right here. Now can I reach that? Can I reach that here? Can I see a series here? I cannot. You see that? I cannot, which means I'm not going to be able to set that at runtime. That's one of the drawbacks I don't like about this. I wish they would let us do this more dynamically at runtime. So what we need to do is we have to have a table out there. You'd have a collection out there called series, and you would map that. And what you would do is you would just dump, if it's the average that you're collecting here, you would put average in there, and you would say the average. And if you wanted to collect a median, you would put a median in there. So that's how you would shape the pie chart. You actually have to have one field and dump different values in there depending on what that radio button was. That's the only way you can make this dynamic. It's not too bad though. It's very workable, right? This is the real programming right here. This is the most fun I've had so far.
Price of a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
You can recover Kurt from